Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and whenever anyone looks to get into dual sport motorcycle riding, one of the first searches they make is which should I get, the Honda CRF300L or the Kawasaki KLX300? This question has been asked and answered enough times on the internet. There are plenty of videos that'll go back and forth between the pros and cons between these two bikes, and I myself have looked into the pros and cons of these two bikes. So in order to answer this question once and for all here at Daily Motor, I'm out with my buddy Dax. We're out here right outside of the Mojave National Preserve in Southern California, and we have the 2025 Kawasaki KLX300 and the 2025 Honda CRF300L, and we are going to go ride them all day. We're going to do a mixture of this deeper sand riding that you see here. We're going to just explore, have fun, maybe do some roads. We're gonna have to go get some gas at some point because each of these only have about 2-gallon gas tanks, and in proper real world fashion, we forgot to bring our gas can out here. We were out with the Ford Ranger Raptor as well, doing some camping. So you can see we fit both of these bikes and two-person camping gear very comfortably, I might add, in the back of the Raptor. We had it fully loaded, but the truck did well. If you do want to see more on that, check the link below, because later today and tomorrow we're going to go rip that around Razor VRA out here outside of Mojave. But today it's about the bikes. And you'll see a lot of videos on these two motorcycles coming from more professional riders and outlets. However, I think this one is going to be particularly useful for two reasons. One, we're going to cut through the BS, and I can tell you right here at the beginning of the video, these bikes are essentially the same. You'll essentially find that conclusion near the end of most comparisons and reviews of these two motorcycles. What you're mostly going to find is that the KLX has better suspension and the Honda has a little bit better electronic suite and a better, at least subjectively speaking in my eyes, a more preferable motor, more preferable torque band. However, Dax and I are not professional riders. Dax has ridden motorcycles throughout his life and dirt bikes when he was younger, and I've been getting more and more into motorcycles, but neither of us are super well versed in the dirt. So this is going to be a very true to the type of buyer of these motorcycles. Because let's be honest, if you're a professional dirt junkie, you're not even going to be looking at these two. There's no point in spending $7,000 on a CRF300L, putting $4,000 worth of suspension and engine mods onto it, when you could just go out and pick up yourself a CRF450 or something from Husqvarna or KTM. But we are the type of people who would actually use these sort of motorcycles in the real world on the street, and then out here for kind of just fun ride with your buddy sort of adventures. So unfortunately, along with the gas can, we also forgot our microphones, because that's often how things go when you're packing up at the end of a workday and heading out to do camping, loading up the truck, is you forget things on top of our sleeping bags and other warm things for being out here in the desert. So we're going to do a little bit of slower speed riding coverage here today. You'll be able to hear from my GoPro. We're going to ride throughout the day and catch up with you later on. But just a super quick overview for those of you who don't know. These both have roughly 21 horsepower. They're both single cylinder, just under 300cc motors, fuel injected. As you're seeing them, they are pretty equally spec'd. The only difference being that the Honda has some very light plastic handguards right there. But they're mostly about just going out and having fun. So that's what we are aiming to do. So without any further ado, we're going to get geared up and hit the trail. Okay, we made it to this cool little shady spring area coming up a little south of the Mojave Trail, right on the border of Mojave Preserve. Dax has been on the Kawi, I've been on the Honda, and working hard.
Yeah,
we were in some really soft stuff, running it out. There were even points where we had to walk it. And what we've noticed a little bit is the tires, the difference of the tires. And we're just running OEM tires from the factory right now. On the Kawasaki, we've got Dunlop D605Gs. And what do we have on here? We've got IRC Trails GP22Rs on the Honda. And looking at them, there's a little bit more meat, a little bit of a more aggressive tread on the Honda. And the rears are actually pretty similar in design, but come take a look at the fronts. You can see the Kawasaki looks a little bit more street friendly, a little bit smaller, shallower knobs there. And then you come over to the Honda, fewer knobs and a little bit deeper. And we're gonna find out right now when we switch, but I'm wondering if it's just a little bit more confidence inspiring in the sand that we've been in. Super sandy, super deep, going up and down some dunes. But overall, I've been happy on the Honda. You've been having a good time?
Kawasaki's fun.
Nice. We did have the check engine light come on once on the Kawasaki, but we think it might have just been from kind of running it hard and walking it through the sand. Might have been getting hot or something, and then it was off after letting it sit a bit. So we're gonna switch bikes and keep on rolling. Oh, you good, bro? I'm okay. Go, bro. Woo, right in the Rockies. Yeah, this stuff is tough.
Yeah.
Yep. See if the foot peg goes back down, or if it's jammed. There you go. Okay. Make sure. See if the shifter seems like it's in the right spot and stuff. Yeah. Okay. You good? You're alive.
Yeah, just honestly, just kind of like I slid down this and then kind of front end kind of dipped and
Happens. Now this is what dual sporting is about. Not rip and trail, but instead finding lava tubes in the middle of a national preserve with your buddy and sending it. Walking down, literally having to use our phone flashlights to climb into this dark cave. It's on the map, don't worry, it's official, but yeah. That's what's so fun about dual sporting, is just finding what there is to find. And so now we're gonna eat some apples partway into this lava tube, an old ancient volcano.
Dude, it'll be sick.
And that's what entry-level dual sports can get you to, much quicker than in most cars.
Yeah.
Except for the Ranger. Raptor would have get here pretty
Yeah,
quick.
the Raptor though. It would have been as fun.
Yeah. You can see the bikes down there. Just a short hike up, and then giant hole. Giant hole in the darkness.
Big black hole.
Yep. Pretty awesome. Beautiful landscape out here. Whew. We've only used about a gallon of gas. Environmentally friendly. So we put in a hard day of work riding the two dual sports around. We ended up doing just over 100 miles, about 62 of that through the sand and the dirt and the hills. Had a lot of fun, but given the fact that I don't have the in-helmet mics, I'm gonna take these both back to DMHQ and shoot a little wrap up on each of the bikes, because definitely saw some of their differences throughout the day, but they really are still quite similar motorcycles. But I think there's a little bit of a delineation between which one you should go with depending on your situation. So let's head to the pavement. So let's start with the Kawasaki. Both bikes made it back unscathed. They both, well, mostly unscathed, definitely beat up a little bit, but one of the advantages of having a bike like this as one of your first bikes is that when you do dump it over, they're less likely to be unrideable afterward. And both of these bikes took two different spills, and they're both more or less fine. And as we get rolling on the KLX here, you can see the fuel light, both the little indicator light there and then on the screen flashing telling us that we are in need of fuel. That pops up with about half a gallon left, so we should be okay for this test ride. If not, then you're going to experience live running out of fuel in a KLX, but I think we should be all right. I did mention, I believe, but no optional ABS for the KLX, and that's a bummer to me. I know most people, especially experienced dirt riders, aren't going to want ABS, or really couldn't care less. They don't want the added weight, complexity, cost, any of it. However, you shouldn't be buying an entry-level dual sport if you're an advanced dirt rider. This is for people who might not realize that if a car pulls right out in front of me, I shouldn't grab a whole handful of brake and risk dumping the bike down. But that is going to be the tendency of a newer rider, and ABS is proven to vastly reduce the possibility of bad crashes compared to bikes without ABS. So the fact that you can get ABS on the Honda and you can't on the KLX is disappointing to me. Great thing about riding dual sports around town is you can maneuver right around people if it's illegal to do so. And you've got great visibility on dual sports. So you're sitting nice and upright, looking around, people see you, you see people. And that is one thing I kind of like about this bright green paint color on the Kawasaki, is that it's going to help people notice me. I'm going to stand out. Now, I think you're going to be noticed on the red on the Honda as well, but, you know, just something to consider. Getting back out in the street just reminds you how happy even these low horsepower single cylinder bikes are. No gear indicator on the KLX, so if you're a newer rider, you're just definitely going to have to get used to paying attention to what gear you're in. Getting up to highway speed. Yeah. Do a 6-gear pull. Sitting upright. 80 miles per hour indicated, not too bad. Now you're not going to notice much of a difference in comfortability between these two bikes. Motors sound slightly different, act slightly different. Let's see, about 6,000 RPM here. Rolling on. Yeah, not a ton of power. Let's see a little bit more where my power band is here. Yeah, definitely more of that crescendo up top here with the KLX. I do appreciate that this little cable for the brake cable up here is out of the way of the gauge cluster on the Kawasaki. I don't know if that's just a matter of how that specific Honda we have was built or what the deal is, but it blocks the gauge cluster. That's frustrating. Dax and I were having issues with the shifter on the Kawasaki getting stuck in neutral when we were off-road going from first to second. I think that just has to do with where we have the shifter positioned on this bike. I don't think that's an actual fault of the motorcycle. Do a little informal acceleration test here. The Kawasaki is very happy, wring your neck out, kind of playful dirt bike style motorcycle. It feels like Kawasaki just took their off-road bike and made it street legal. And obviously there are differences, but it is a little bit more akin to that. When it came to riding off-road, the bikes were fairly even. As I said in the beginning of the video, they're practically the same bike. However, I did have a slight preference toward the Kawasaki because of that fun, playful nature. And I think most more advanced riders that you talk to are going to have that slight preference toward the KLX. However, the reason that I don't place much importance on that for this style of comparison is, like I said at the beginning, if you're an experienced rider, especially on dirt, why are you even considering a motorcycle like this? I mean, yeah, maybe you just want something in the stable that's inexpensive to both ride and own and purchase, and you can go on-road and off-road and sort of do adventures. But there are both adventure bikes and dual sports and dedicated dirt bikes that are all going to be a better fit for a more advanced rider like that. So when we're looking at motorcycles in this class, I'm considering, okay, how is it going to be for somebody who hasn't ridden much dirt, who hasn't maybe even ridden much street, who doesn't know, isn't all that familiar with motorcycles and riding, which bike is going to be best for them? And that's where I do think the Honda just has the slightest advantage. So let's hop on the red one. And right away, starting it up, we see that we don't need to guess for how much fuel we have. We have a gauge that tells me I've got about half a tank. Yeah, a little bit of a smoother idle there as well, just a slight bit more throatiness to the motor. This is super minor, but I like the style of the mirrors on the Honda better too. I think they look cooler. Maybe slightly more functional because they show a little bit more width, a little less height, but mostly just because they look cooler. Ah, yeah. For the street, I love the responsiveness of the Honda engine. But as I said earlier, look at this. Right in the middle of looking at my gauge. I don't know if that's something, if you could adjust that screw and just have it angled up and back a little bit, or what the deal is there, but a little frustrating. Traffic permitting, we'll do a nice roll on from 6th gear as well, and because this actually has a gear indicator, I know for sure that I'm in 6th. Equally as strong. Not really going to notice much difference at highway speeds here between the two bikes. Maybe slightly less vibration on the Honda. Same thing, about 6,000 RPM, roll onto it. Yeah, definitely more pull down there. More usable power, a little bit lower. Don't have to get quite as high into the rev range. And for riding around town, I prefer that. I prefer being able to kind of be putzing along and then, okay, not super comfortable, somebody in my blind spot, just roll on the accelerator and have it get up and out of its own way without having to downshift as often. Right there, perfect example. Yellow light, full throttle, roll through. And when we were off-road, I didn't care about that quite as much. I kind of liked the spunky nature and more willingness to be happy and go lucky up in the higher revs of the Kawasaki. That was a little bit more fun and exciting for screwing around. Come the f on, dude. Between the suspension, the engine, the electronics package, everything about the Honda takes about 10% off of the thrill factor and adds it into the comfort and usability factor. And to me, in this class of motorcycle, that's more important. But it isn't to everybody, and that's why it's good that the Kawasaki exists. They're both excellent dual sport bikes. They're just a little different. Woo! Saw how much the front end came up on this one. Both about the same speeds, but a little bit more of that low end pull right there. The power does fall off a little bit in the higher RPMs on the Honda, so it's not necessarily as exciting to ring out and be a hooligan with. The other aspect to add on with the CRF is that Honda now has the S version that drops it down about an inch or so and makes it even easier for entry-level and shorter riders to ride both street and dirt. Kawasaki makes a low version of one of their dual sports, but it's not the 300, it's the 230. And I do like that bike. I think it's a great entry-level kind of dual sport sort of motorcycle. But I do think it speaks to the intention behind both of the bikes. The fact that Kawasaki makes the low version of their 230 and not the 300, whereas we've got the 300 from Honda in the short version. So my rub, like I said at the beginning of the video, is they're both great. They're both a great way to get on two wheels, to get accustomed to both street riding, to dirt riding, and to allow you to figure out what sort of rider you want to be. And if you're a more experienced rider and you want to go out and do a trip like we did, it's totally doable. They're light enough to throw in the back of a pickup truck or on a hitch carrier or something, or even ride out to your local off-road place and go have fun. They'll do it, and they'll allow you to have a great time. If you're going to ride more dirt, I'd probably go with the Kawasaki. It just feels a little bit more like a dirt bike to me. If you are a newer rider or you're going to ride more street, I'd go with the Honda. And me personally, as myself, I would choose the Honda. I'd get ABS. It's disableable for off-road. I just like being on it more for street riding. It's subtle. I'd be totally happy on the Kawasaki as well. And I will admit, the Kawasaki is a little bit cheaper. Kawasaki's slashed a lot of prices. And if you're looking at one of these lightly used or maybe left over on the showroom floor or something, and you could get the Kawasaki for significantly cheaper, and the only Honda dealers near you are asking markups or being stingy on the prices or something, then just get the Kawasaki. Take the extra $1,000 you save and get some great gear and pay for fuel and trips and hotel rooms and just enjoy riding, because they're both great for that. But absolutely head-to-head for me, slight preference toward the Honda. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on either of these bikes, check the link below. I'm going to have dedicated reviews of both of them. If you want to see more of our camping trip with the Ranger Raptor, I'll throw the link to that below as well. Shout out to Dax for putting up with me pushing them through some hard sand riding out in the desert. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, ride on.